Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Rachael O'Meara, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Pause, Harnessing the Life-Changing Power of Giving Yourself a Break. Now, Rachael is a transformational leadership coach and speaker who assists others to fulfill their potential. She's a senior account executive at Google and also hosts authors who have meaningful messages about mindfulness and emotional intelligence for the Talks at Google YouTube channel. Her book, Pause, was named one of 2017's top business books for your career and was featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. So let's welcome to the show, Rachael O'Meara.
Hello, Marianne. Welcome. It's great to be here.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here, and I love that we get to talk about your new book, Pause. How exciting is that? Oh, my goodness.
I know. I'm thrilled. And I think it's one of those messages I hope is timeless, so that even if it comes out today, something later on in whatever time period is something that you need to look into pausing, it's available and there for someone.
Well, I would agree with you. It is, because it doesn't matter if we're looking at using pause for ourselves, our business. It's all kind of all together anyway, but it's something that I can pick this book up, and in 5 years, it's relevant.
Yeah, I think that there is a factor that is speaking to that, where it is something of need in our always-on day and age, is probably we're all too familiar with. And I call a pause any intentional shift in behavior, too. So it doesn't have to be some type of practice like a mindfulness exercise or even meditation. It's really just your specific intention to do something different that allows you to shift in a way that aligns and helps you feel more satisfied and have more meaning in what you're doing.
Well, how important is that? And, I'd love for you to share with our listeners your story, because that is a great example of using, if you like, pause at work.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my story. So I'll take you back a few years where I was working in Google, where I work today. I was in a role where I was managing a team in client services. So it was a lot of operational type of day-to-day work. And for whatever reason, my role wasn't just going the way that I had planned. And I was the envy of all my friends. I looked like I had the best job on the planet. And yet I just felt miserable. And what was going on was I felt like I couldn't get it right in terms of just meeting expectations from my manager and the team. And it wasn't for a lack of effort, but I was told things like I didn't have executive presence, or I wasn't communicating effectively up, down, and across the organization. I wasn't specific enough with details that I needed to provide in those operational reports in this new team that was getting built. So I just felt like I was in a mental tailspin. And I don't know if anyone can relate who's listening, but I really wasn't sure what to do. But I knew this wasn't the way that things possibly could be at their best. And I just didn't know what to change or fix. And one day, my manager sat me down, and she just really laid it out for me and said, I don't know if this is the right role for you, Rachael. You might want to consider doing something else. And so I was faced with that dilemma, and the following day, I reached out to a couple of girlfriends of mine, and I gave them my dilemma, and one of them actually mentioned, doesn't Google have a leave of absence program? And it was like this light bulb went off, where I hadn't thought of that because I was in my mental stressed out position and not really thinking big, where that's how we kind of tend to get if we are in overwhelm or stress. We feel very tunnel vision. And so I researched it online in our own internal internet, and sure enough, there was. And so I prepared a case for myself. I'd been at the company for a while, and the following day I came in to Google and had the meeting to say that I thought this an unpaid break would be something that I would benefit from, and gave the reasons why. So fortunately for me, my manager and human resources approved my my plan, and I know that's also very privileged. Only 14% of companies globally offer any kind of paid or unpaid leave, and there's actually only 4% that offer paid leave. And I ended up changing, was starting to plan my 3 months that I would take, where I knew if I had just gone into something else directly, I was pretty sure I was going to just be repeating the same patterns, kind of that analogy of showing up with just different clothes on, but the same job. And I didn't want that. I just knew that couldn't be possibly how good things could get. And in that break, so I took this 3 month unpaid break, I didn't really focus on the things I would typically do, like go travel or spend my time doing cool things that I think I would benefit from, or even a course or something. I actually chose to just be present and learn about myself. And by that I mean, I looked at what my strengths were. I did the Strength Finder 2.0 assessment, which is available to all of us still through the Gallup poll. And I looked at really what were my biggest fears, because I felt like maybe this wasn't the role for me, and I was really kind of scared to look at that and kind of facing who I could become. And so I did these kind of exercises during these 3 months, and I did return to Google, but I actually looked for a role only in the sales organization. So today I'm actually in that, based on the strengths that I knew I was a good networker and a communicator. And I was also validating this with colleagues and trusted friends of mine who I would ask them, like, I'm not really sure if I know what I'm good at anymore. What do you think I'm good at? And I would get these affirmations, which were actually at the time, little did I know it, were really helpful and supportive for me. So that's a little bit about my story. And then I also started helping others learn about emotional intelligence. I hadn't had any training in that, but while I came back, I actually started hosting speakers at Google as a volunteer opportunity, and one of them invited me to their training in Chicago, Judith Wright, who's now my mentor, and I'm a student studying that. And I also have written this book, which is really all of the things I wish I'd known back then, because I've learned all of these things in emotional intelligence and really how to tune in and be more self-aware. And if I had had any of these tools, which are in the book, then I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gotten myself into a jam where I felt like I had to take this longer break. And so that's my mission with the book, is really helping people all over understand that they can create a mindset of pause or an intentional shift in behavior. And it doesn't have to be some long break or wait until you're actually burned out. It could be something that you can take on daily and integrate for really sustaining yourself in a way that works for you. And that's what pause is all about.
Well, and how powerful is that? Because, a lot of times we get into different company positions or roles where either we've trained for it or, it's something that we kind of fall into. And be happy maybe or maybe not. And to be able to step back and look at really what serves us, I mean, what a powerful example that is.
Yeah, thank you. I like I said, I didn't really know at the time this is what would become a book or anything like that, but I kind of thought I can't be the only person who has felt the overwhelm or stress of a role and then done something different. And I think in our world, in the Western culture, it's almost like not talked about, or there's some shame around it when you want to take a break. Almost as if you'll appear as a slacker, and that's actually a myth. We perceive that, but the reality is, because things are getting so connected and we're just always on, we need to build that into our days if we really want to be successful in the long term. That's like a big message of mine.
Well, and you're right, because a lot of times people they end up getting burnt out, going, gosh, this is the wrong place for me, and, having to make some really drastic changes. Instead, they can be doing, they can read your book, pause, and they can look for those keys that will kind of help them be able to manage as they're going, so they don't get to a point where stress kind of overtakes everything.
Exactly, and I actually have a chapter called The 5 Signs when you know you need a pause, and these all were signs that I had received, and they're just the starting point. And you may have one of them, or all 5 of them, or even your own unique ways where you're like, maybe I need a pause. And it, again, doesn't have to be a long break. Mine happened to be an extended pause, but it could be half of an afternoon on a Saturday that you take to think about something that's been on your mind. So it could be an hour. It could be not having your phone turned on at a dinner or a meal. I mean, these are daily device pauses, and there's all different kinds of that. And I'm happy to go through the signs if that's something of interest.
Oh, of course, yes. I'd love for you to share with our listeners what those are so they can kind of, as we're going through this, decide, gosh, is this something I need to investigate more? And if so, getting the book Pause is a perfect way to start this new year.
Yeah, exactly. So the 5 signs you know you need a pause, and you can go along with me as you listen if you want to just keep track of, give yourself a point for each one of these. So the first sign is you used to love your job and now you loathe it. And this could be for anything, from an entrepreneur to a part-time worker or a volunteer or anything. So there was this spark you used to have, and just right now it's not going so great, and you're almost dreading wanting to go. The second sign is that your boss tells you it's not working out. So this is an obvious one. It might not be a direct conversation, but it could be the proverbial pink slip, as I like to say, where maybe you get a hint from another colleague, or you actually get a hint from yourself and say, maybe this isn't what I want to do anymore. And you're just thinking about it. It's like you're exploring that question. The third sign is that you have a technology intervention, and this is a big one because you can give yourself the intervention, and you may think you're tethered to your device too much, whether it's a phone or a laptop or your emails or your social media, or maybe it's a loved one or someone where your relationship is at stake. It could be a family member, and pretty much there's all kinds of ways you can shift how you interact with technology, but pretty much if you're giving yourself the intervention or someone else, it's a good sign that potentially a pause is in order. That's a big one. So that's the third one. And then the fourth one is there is an opportunity arises. So there might be something that you're just having this itch to do. It could be a trip. It could be a passion project you've been putting off for years or any time period. Or it could be maybe starting something on the side that you just want to be exploring. Your curiosity has gotten to you, and there's an art project burning inside of you that's waiting to come out creativity-wise. Who knows? There's a whole list of those things. So that's the opportunity knocks. And then the last one is there's actually a challenge. And the challenge is, as you know, any adversity you might be facing. And a lot of times we love to muscle through this. I know for me personally, I'm a huge muscle through it kind of woman. I was a rowing champion. I lived in New York for 10 years. I feel like my whole bloodline and my blood is just like go, go, go. And I can do this if I just roll up my sleeves. And yes, to some extent that can work. But again, it's a long-term game. So if you're dealing with a loss or a huge health issue, whether it's you or someone you love, there are ways that you can deal with that require pausing, and it doesn't have to be interfering with a long-term thing like your job. I mean, these are things that you can take moment by moment any day and have. So those are the 5 signs. You used to love your job, now you loathe it. Your boss tells you it's not working out. You have a technology intervention. You have an opportunity that knocks or an adverse challenge. And so there's 5 there. If you tally those up in your mind, if you've got one of those, that's actually a sign that a pause could be in order. And if you have more than 3, 4, 5, then it's probably pretty important, and it's something to be thinking about and how you can align so that you just feel more satisfied and thrive in what you're doing every day. I think that's what we all are wanting.
Yeah, because, I mean, you're so right, because we all want this fulfilled life, and our work takes such a huge part of that, so if we're in a place where we're not feeling fulfilled, it can be just really difficult. And that's why I love Pause so much, because it kind of helps us get back on track with what we're looking to do with our life. And it's interesting, and this is one of the things I was really surprised by, because when people think of pause, they're probably going, well, I get sleep for like the full couple months if I take off of work. But you have guidelines for pause.
I do have guidelines for pause, and that's the thing. It's almost like a catch-22 where you think if I throw my feet up on the couch and tune into Netflix, that's a pause. And yes, that is a pause to some extent. But again, a pause, as I define it, is any intentional shift in behavior. So if you are doing that on the couch, what's your intention? Are you recovering and resting? Is that to be feeling fulfilled after that? And it depends on your activity. Some things are kind of draining to watch or exhausting, and some are relaxing. But it's a bigger picture is that pause is a lifestyle and a mindset where you are curious. You're constantly putting on your growth mindset, like Carol Dweck, who is the author and researcher behind a book called Mindset. She's in the book. She's been a big influence of mine because I know without my growth mindset or beginner's mind, a lot of this I would just kind of brush off, just like we were saying. Like you might be listening and being like, yeah, I'll put my feet up on the couch or go to the beach. And those are good. But the thing is, if we're not really learning and growing, then we're not necessarily nourishing ourselves. And that's really what I think is behind a pause, is that you feel sustained and that you feel refreshed and renewed so that you do feel aligned. And to give you an idea, like that might be a risk that you take or a conversation you have with someone you care about that you may not have ventured into having. Maybe there was a fear of hurting someone's feelings or saying a truth that was a little bit scary to share. And those to me are a pause as well, because those are the things that move us forward in life that do bring us satisfaction. And there might be short-term things like the fear you feel or even pain or healing that has to happen. And that's okay because we're all human. But pausing is this a way of being that is, I'm hoping, can be a movement where we really just come out of this world of always on and autopilot, because that's how we are as people. We have autopilot minds, and unconsciously our brains are thinking 90% plus time unconsciously, believe it or not. So if we can actually shift these behaviors moment by moment, then we're able to really shift how we are in the day, how we are thinking about things, how we are behaving and being with others, and you're also feeling good about it. Yeah.
Don't we need more of that? My goodness. You know? Because, I mean, we look at it, I mean, we really are a society, when we talk with just about everybody, I mean, they're stressed, they're overstressed, they're feeling very pressured, and to be able to get a place where you can kind of de-stress on a daily basis, because I love how you can use pause daily. It's beneficial for people just to, kind of get into a place where they're being a little bit more themselves as opposed to feeling like they're being chased by wolves,
Yeah, and I actually have a bunch of suggested daily pauses that I think are great to do no matter where you are. They don't require potentially finances and money, time or activity. It's actually about what you create for yourself. And one pause, if you are interested, I can share a few. That might be helpful. Yeah, so there's a few, and one is just my favorite go-to called the belly breath pause. You can probably imagine what this is, but anyone who's listening here with us, I invite you to join us where you sit up straight. Maybe you're driving or just walking and you've got your feet on the ground, your legs uncrossed, your arms uncrossed, and if you can close your eyes. You don't have to, but you can lower your gaze and kind of soften it so that it's very peripheral and you're not really focused. But if you go ahead and take one hand and put it on your diaphragm or your heart, and to take one breath, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. And go ahead and remove your hand, open your eyes, blink a few times, and that's really one pause. Like that is a daily pause you could do anytime. And maybe one breath isn't enough to get you there this time, but it's a start. And that's how change happens, is little baby steps. So a belly breath pause is a great way to go. No matter where you are, you always have your breath. We all know how to breathe. It's just bringing a conscious breath into your day. That's just one, and that's easy. You can build up to 10 breaths is my invitation there if anyone feels like they liked that. Another one is You can do something. I think a lot of times people think it takes a lot of time where you might want to be doing something else. And I actually disagree with that, because I think one of my mentors, her favorite quote is, if you feel like it's a waste of time, then do you feel like you have time to feel like crap? And I love that, because it's probably something we don't want to feel. So mindfulness, where that's a big buzzword right now, but really all that is bringing attention to what you're doing. So if you do an activity you already do, it might even be walking down a hallway, or getting the mail, or eating a meal, sipping a cup of tea, brushing your teeth, washing your hair. These are all things that we do day to day, and sometimes we're just mindless in it. But if you actually bring focus to the five senses, so what do you see, what do you feel, what do you hear, what do you touch, what do you smell, that is activating different parts of your brain and helps to bring you into the real present moment, the here and now. And so I invite you to, next time you brush your teeth, maybe tonight, the way it feels, the bristles on your teeth and the bubbles and the foam, and how is that? And that's just all you need to do is take a minute for that. Walking in nature is so important, and that is an intentional shift in behavior. And it might just be around the block or down the street, the block from the train station to your apartment or to work. That's a really big one too. So outdoor pausing is a great way to go, and we all can identify with why it matters to be outdoors and just getting away from maybe a routine that makes us feel a little stuck sometimes. So those are just a couple examples, and I have a whole bunch of other ones that are in the book, and ways to just be thinking about it. And there's no wrong way to do this either. So it's about coming up with what works for you and experimenting with a few of these so that you can try a few on, see which ones stick, which ones you like, and build them from there. And gratitude practice is another one, and journaling. All of these are really, really positive, powerful ways to pause. That's a lot of P's.
Yeah. Well, and I know we're briefly covering this. I mean, you go into such great detail in your book in regards to the different ways that we can go ahead and pause and how we can implement those in our life. One of the questions I have, I think I have time for one or two more questions here, is, when we do the pause, do we have to have a goal, or is it something that is kind of open-ended?
I love that. So when you pause, I don't think you need to have a goal. I think the intention is more important, and I would just call the intention, like, how do you want to be after this pause, whether it's a breath or the afternoon, and think about your state. And I would invite you to think about that instead. So it doesn't have, because what happens is when we get thought and caught up in the goals, our thinking brains go crazy. They love it. It's like this constant feed of information and data, and you're thinking about things, and then it leads to another thought, and you're thinking again. And the next thing you know is you've kind of lost the whole purpose of being present, right? So instead of goals, it's easy to get sidetracked on that. You can actually just name a feeling. This is a really good tool as well. And where I study at the Wright Foundation, we have 5 primary emotions. So there's fear, joy, sadness, anger, and then the 5th one is hurt. Fear, joy, sadness, anger, hurt. And there's other schools of thought that have maybe a slightly different variation there. But if you just name one of those feelings when you do pause, whether it's a breath or something else, it's a great way to drop into your body and get present. And then you can think about your intention. Like, how do I want to be? I want to feel refreshed. I want to feel here. I don't want to feel in my head and in this stressed out zone anymore. It's just a powerful way to shift. And I always say, for pausing, think about it like the broad brush strokes, like when you're painting on a canvas, you're just putting a brush stroke on there, a big swath of blue or something, and you're not putting in all of the fine pencil line details. You don't have to have it all figured out. And that's kind of the magic of pausing as well, because if we plan and overplan things, it tends to kind of not have as much impact as it could if we just choose to be and see where it takes us.
Well, and sometimes people, I mean, I've done it myself, we can kind of get stuck in the planning,
Oh, yeah. And then there's the whole, it can lead into the analysis paralysis with just all kinds of things coming at you. And then we're just right back where we were. So that's part of the magic of pausing to me, is not having a plan. And I talk about this in the book because in my pause, I didn't know if I was coming back to Google. I mean, mine was an extended one, but I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was in this unknown. And that's also, I think, a way a pause works, is you're in this unknown. And like, even take an example where you've lost a job, or you're in a transition between jobs. You may not have even lost it, but you're just looking for a role, coming back to work or something like that. That is a state of the unknown, and theoretically, in my eyes, it's a pause. It's an intentional shift in behavior. But we don't know necessarily what's on the other side of that. So it's about being with yourself, that self-awareness, maybe naming a feeling, and trusting that you're okay, and trust that you may not have it all figured out, and that's all right. And it's actually probably better you don't have it figured out, which means possibilities can happen, and opportunities can emerge if you stay open and curious in that growth mindset. And if you have the intention, setting the boundaries and the rules, and this is part of what you were talking about earlier. So maybe you make some rules up in that longer pause, and you say, I reach out to 5 people a day. I'm going to call 5 colleagues and make 5 connections so that I can move forward in my job search. And that's 5 is probably pretty low. You could start with 5. You could start with 1, and you build it up. And rules and boundaries like that are really critical as well to creating structure for longer pauses. But like I said, you don't have to have it all figured out, and it's actually better if you don't.
Well, and I think that's perfect, because that way your pause doesn't end up being, going comatose, watching, doing some binge on some series,
Exactly, yeah. And then we get lost in that too, right? We're like sucked in. I know I'm a big culprit of binge watching, and we all love it. It's like we get hooked into an episode, and then there's the next hook for the next episode, and we want to watch. And I mean, we're kind of looped in. So it's really important to consciously even pause from that, just get up and get a glass of water or something, because it's just easy to get in those, I'll call it a Netflix trance. Yeah, that's not necessarily the same as a pause. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of checking out, really. Well, as opposed to being mindful in regards to where you are,
Yeah, and that's a key difference, I think, in kind of what you're saying is being conscious and aware. So this is all about your own self-awareness. So that's the beauty of intentional shift in behavior or pause, is that you're bringing a new way of thinking and being to whatever you're doing. So you're in this conscious or aware world that may have historically not have existed for you, or you just really weren't tuned in. And it's like a dial. Like you can dial it up when you want it more, and just remember to do it more. But it's not easy, and we like to not do that all the time. So it's about striking what works for you as well. But it's the place to start and know you can create what you want, but it takes that conscious effort.
Well, Rachel, we're at the start of a new year, and we've got 2 days before the new year starts. What do you want readers to take away from your book, or what are your thoughts in regards to how to use this book for the new year?
Yeah, I know. The new year is such a great, I want to say, segue into the new you and thinking about who you can become. And I think we all do this as an annual cycle shows up again. And so for what I would hope is that you who can see that there's maybe different things ahead of you. There's possibilities out there for you. Maybe you don't know how to get them. Maybe there's desires and deeper things that you're desiring and wanting, but you just don't really know how to get there. And so to me, the tool to get there is to pause. And again, it's an intentional shift in behavior. So if you ask yourself, this coming year, even January, what do I want to be different? What would I want to change? You could even start with a challenge. What's my biggest challenge right now, or what's my block? And then you can spend and dedicate some time, i.e. a pause, towards just being with that, being in the inquiry of it, maybe journaling about it, maybe thinking about it, and just sitting with it. And know that you don't have to have the answers, but if you allow yourself to kind of sit with it, that those things tend to emerge. You might start feeling things a little differently or get new ideas, because if we rush into solutions, sometimes we miss some things that are there. So I think a pause is such a great way to have new possibilities, especially in the new year as we're in this creative time of what do we want? How do we want things to be different? And what do I want my year to look like? And then it can be a practice too. So it's a tool and it's also a practice. So how can you build in a pause mindset for yourself? Meaning, is there a way you'd want to pause daily? And it might be not eating lunch at your desk. I mean, this is one I've had for a few years now. But start small. Start with the little things, because that's how change is made. And go for that, and then use the pause as a time to be and reflect. And know that that's in service to your doing. And you're not a slacker, but you're knowing there's more out there for you, and the pause is an option for you to get there.
I think that's fabulous advice. And keep going. Where can people connect with you? And do you offer any type of coaching or one-on-one for people that want to jumpstart?
Yeah, I do. So I do have a website, RachaelO'Meara.com. I also have a podcast called The Pausecast, and I offer a free gift. So if you are interested, I'm offering some spots. I've opened up my calendar for a 30-minute Pause and Thrive breakthrough session. So Pause and Thrive is a way that I like to think about what could be different for you. And if you go to my website, RachaelO'Meara.com, and you'll be able to click on the link that says schedule a Pause and Thrive session, which is on the coaching page. And I do offer coaching. I have a course called Thrive, Lead, and Succeed, which is a great course, which will be starting in a few months. And you can learn more about that, too, when we talk.
Oh. Well, Rachael, thank you so much for taking the time not only to share your wisdom and insights with us today, and, of course, your just compelling story, but also your book, Pause. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Marianne. It was wonderful to be here, and I am so excited to share my message, especially as our year winds down and we think about what could be different. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rachael. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Pause, Harnessing the Life-Changing Power of Giving Yourself a Break. Again, if you'd like to connect with Rachael, you can at her website, RachaelO'Meara.com. We'll have the link below, and make sure to be part of her community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.